Greetings, welcome. Thank you so very much. Heartfelt thanks for your interest in the forthcoming Shruti School of Yoga 300-hour teacher training. If we have not connected before, maybe you're new around here, my name is Amy Landry. I'm an Australian registered senior yoga teacher, Ayurvedic practitioner, mentor of other yoga teachers, an author with my forthcoming book, The Ocean of Yoga, with Shambhala Publications, coming out in 2026. Such an immense honor. And I'm also an Odissi dancer. Odissi dance is an incredibly rich, deep, profound art form of dance from Orissa in East India. And I'm profoundly, deeply passionate about many of the Indic traditions, arts, sciences, systems. And that is what I aim to bring through my work. And so again, I thank you so very much for being here. It does mean the world that you are considering embarking on this path with me. And this video aims to bring a little bit of insight into specifically the curriculum of the forthcoming training. I urge you as you watch this to perhaps consider bringing up the Shruti School of Yoga webpage to have a look at alongside. I'd love to share with you some of the Shastra, the texts that we will be studying together, and a few of the subjects, let's say, that we will be delving into that make this such a rich and robust, transformative training. So first and foremost, in case you don't know already, this training is 100% online. Now, pre-COVID, I will be the first to admit that I was not a fan of online trainings. However, certainly times have changed and the online experience is incredibly improved. And I know myself that I have personally benefited tremendously since this change in the delivery of teachings and the opportunity we have to access teachers and teachings that we would not have otherwise. As a mother of two myself, I also greatly appreciate the value in accessibility and flexibility. But we are all householders, and so we have our challenges, our duties. Maybe that is work, relationships, children. And so this training absolutely has that at the forefront to support you in working around your everyday life. So 3 words come to mind with this training, and that is integrity, integration, and inspiration. And really the first 2 feed into the last one. And when we have sincere integrity, when the teachings are well integrated, there is inspiration. Not only inspiration for our community, not only do we inspire others, but we are constantly inspired ourselves. There is this sort of overflowing source of insight, inspiration, yearning to learn, yearning to serve and to share, to create. So this is really more than a training. This immersion is a return to reverence, to the profound, wholesome, vast spectrum, the ocean that is yoga. It is awakening of inner authority so that you feel qualified, not just on a piece of paper, not just on a certificate, but deep within. It's a pathway of spiritual integrity because we are approaching yoga in the most complete sense. Of course, we will never know everything about yoga in one lifetime. However, this training really draws upon many of the traditions and techniques within yoga and the Vedic traditions and sciences, so that you as a practitioner, first and foremost, feel a deeper embodiment, and thereby, should you choose to teach, this then translates to your students and in your community. Note that you do need to have a 200-hour teacher training certification by the time the training begins. So maybe you're already a well-established teacher, maybe you're already actively teaching, maybe you're not teaching at all, maybe you're finishing up a 200-hour teacher training. Either is fine. So as you enroll in this training program, you will simply need to send me that 200-hour certification, and that is all. So on the website, you can download a free PDF information guide, plus receive a short 3-part video series. If you've not already delved into that, I urge you to do so. In addition to this training being 100% online, please note that it is a 12-month program. We start on the incredible occasion of Diwali or Deepavali on October 21st this year in 2025, and the training goes for 12 months. In addition to that, you will have an extra 6 months of mentoring with me after the program is complete. And I find that that is really what's lacking in a lot of teacher trainings. Sort of you do the training and off you go, you're sent off. And so that mentoring was so important to me as a way to serve you, to maintain that connection, that relationship with myself, with others doing the training, but so that you have someone to return to ask questions as you continue to navigate this transformation of your own studentship and sharing. So if you are a 200-hour trained teacher, this program really offers a generous, transformative experience for you, for those seeking to really wholeheartedly feel qualified and have that inner authority, so you have a clarity and confidence to go out and to support your community. And really, I know it sounds like a big statement, but to change the world one person at a time. It's really a unique training among this sort of sea of surface level teacher trainings that are saturating the global yoga land at the moment. It's got a spiritual depth, a respect for timeless living traditions, a dedication to the more subtle teachings that you don't get so much. You just kind of gloss over them in the 200-hour training. Now, again, the intent of this video is to take you more deeply into the curriculum. I'll share with you a bit of insight. So in its structure, the training is built upon the 5 core educational categories set out by Yoga Alliance US. Yoga Alliance, many people think it's an international body because they accept payments and registrations from people all around the world, but fundamentally it is a US-based membership peak body. So I utilize the framework that they have for their advanced level 2 training to lay out this training, including the number of minimum hours that should be dedicated within each category, the number of minimum hours that are contact and non-contact, the minimum hours that need to be delivered live, in person, like face-to-face, whether that's online or literally in the flesh. So it really honors the framework and the guidelines set out by Yoga Alliance US. Now, in addition, it aims to meet the competencies that are put forward by Yoga Australia. So this is the difference in the vision. Yoga Australia prioritizes like the end result. Who are you as a teacher and what do you have to offer? Not so much about what you do to get there, because that pathway might look a little bit different for everybody and for every different teacher training school. But the priority is the end result, which is incredible, because it's about saying, hey, we want you to be able to do this, to feel this, to say this, to share this at this level. So this is where we want you to be. This is where we want you to feel competent, confident, capable. So the training also strives to meet those competencies for this same level of training. So it's been a lot of hours and dedication into creating this rich, robust immersion that meets all of these sort of guiding principles from both the Australian and the US yoga peak membership bodies. And then within that, there is a lot of freedom within both, which is wonderful. Times have definitely changed both within Yoga Alliance and Yoga Australia. The format for teacher trainings has been reviewed and changed, and there is the scope for so much more depth and creativity and specificity and nuance within teacher trainings, which is incredible. So we will really delve into both the practical and mystical aspects of yoga. Now, yoga is certainly a noble quest, one that it requires integrity and humility and a really clear vision, and that we dig through the distortions and delusions that are currently everywhere, particularly on social media, but certainly in the Western yoga spaces. So this training is a real return to the roots it's really much about inhabiting the teachings. So they really reshape how you perceive yoga and how you serve in your community. It's for those who are no longer satisfied with surface level instruction and teaching, and you really want to dive deeply, either behind closed doors with your own sadhana or serving in Sangha community. You long to be a steward of yoga, and that is what is so important here. And if you yearn to steward yoga, then you are in the right place. So we honor yoga not at all as a commodity, but a living wisdom tradition. It's alive and well, and it is timeless. So this is about remembering that vast landscape of yoga, to carry it forward with that light and integrity. Okay, so again, hybrid online delivery, pre-recorded and live sessions over 12 months with 6 months extra mentoring on top. So in terms of, I will go over a few FAQ, frequently asked questions, but in terms, I've got some notes here that I'm going to refer to ensure that I'm covering everything. So let's go into those 5 sort of categories, which is how everything's sort of structurally laid out. And then obviously the competencies are like what is then within that framework, what is the destination that we are moving toward? So this is just some of the detailed breakdown, because honestly, this training is so incredibly rich. It would just take me a really long time to go through everything. So in terms of category 1, that's teachings, training, and practice, we will be delving into sequencing according to the 4 C's, as in the letter C, ABC. There are 4 C's that I personally lean upon when sequencing primarily physically oriented classes, postural yoga classes, and pranayama, and so forth. So I look forward to really sharing that insight with you. 1 C, I'll give you some insight. One of those 4 C's is cosmic configurations. It's the Vedic astrology, it's the Jyotish, it's the nakshatra of the day, it's the moon. Is it a full moon, new moon? Is it an eclipse? So that first C is cosmic configurations. And it could pertain to, well, how can I learn how to teach and share in a way that honors my personal Vedic astrological chart profile, maybe by birth, but maybe in this moment, my current transit chart, or more fittingly, it's to look at the current transits of all planets, not just the moon, the seasons, but also the celebrations, the Vedic celebrations, that relate to astrology, Vedic astrology, and how we can use those to inspire what we share in class. And not necessarily that we're telling our students that, but it's just what's informing what we want to share on the day. We don't necessarily have to go into that detail with our students if it doesn't feel relevant, or if they don't feel ready for that or receptive to that. So it's also about what is helping to guide you in creating appropriate sequencing. And maybe your students are hungry for that knowledge. So cosmic configurations is one of the 4 C's, and that just gives you an example of one lens through which we might sequence classes and prepare classes. And you can use them each in isolation, or maybe just focus on one of the 4 C's, but you could also use them all together, which is quite profound. So we'll be delving into practices such as Shavayatra, Yoga Nidra, various techniques that pertain to pratyahara, sensory withdrawal, not just as an intellectual concept, but actually tangibly experienced through techniques and practices. We will be exploring Sanskrit, the alphabet. A big one is pronunciation, the sanctity of Sanskrit, the language of yoga, which is not limited to Sanskrit, it's Sanskrit and beyond. Lots of invocations, correct invocations as taught through a South Indian living lineage. Japa, the various types of japa, how to, not just how to japa, but how to japa correctly, but the different types of japa, which I find that really excites me. And when I say different types of japa is not just about japa mala. Japa mala is one type of japa. So a lot of mantra, Vedic mantra, Veda mantra, again, through me, through a South Indian living lineage. Various kriyas, the shat kriyas, three of 6 that are much more practical and accessible to householders, so that you feel you've mastered them and thereby can serve your student community with those as well. Bandhas, not just knowing what the bandhas are, not just being able to kind of perform them briefly, but how to integrate them into your own practice in a way that actually feels quite powerful and potent, transformative, and how to safely integrate them into your classes with students in a way that is not only safe, but you understand the relevance, why, when, and how, and can competently teach your students. That's super important. When you work with bandhas and you work with the subtle anatomy, subtle yogic anatomy, bandhas are super important. Mudra, whole body mudra, not just hand mudra, although we will be definitely doing an emphasis on hasta mudra and hasta samudrika, which primarily comes from my Odissi background. So we'll be looking at the hands, the symbology of the hands, the use of the hands, the energetics of the hands, the planets, the elements, etc. And Nyasa, puja, so how to use the hands through offerings, mantras that we sort of use the hands with the mantra, hasta marmas, the marmas of the hands. It's a little bit more Ayurvedic in nature, but this can be a beautiful, profound practice. So lots of mudra, again, full body mudra, mouth mudra, eye mudra, inversions, lots of inversions of mudras. So we'll be really refining our understanding of mudra. Props, working with many different props, competently approaching props through the lens of Iyengar and restorative yoga, which is primarily where they came from. Look at ancient uses of props, because many people think that props are a modern invention. So we'll be looking at ancient history and use of different props such as straps. And there will definitely be an asana manual, which will have some prop visuals and instructions, but you will be getting an asana manual specifically. You'll get a few manuals, just so you know. So instead of just lumping you with one big manual, you'll get a few specific PDFs to support you sort of separately in different ways at different times, that are presented in different ways to make them as relevant and efficient and practical, useful, rather than just a book of words and lots of information. Speaking of which, asana. We'll be going through the Pavan Muktasana series, which you'll get a booklet, a manual for the Pavan Muktasana series. We'll be delving into clarifying and integrating concepts such as Vyayama, Charana, Karana, as well as asana, and the integration, the confluence of all of these through the lens of Hatha yoga, classical Indian dance. We're not dancing, but drawing upon all of these and seeing the overlap and the confluence, even like Indian martial forms. So we're just understanding the threads, the seeds of where all these came from and how they all integrated to become the postural yoga that we know today. Sukshma Vyayama, which is a incredibly powerful, potent sequence practice that works with physical movements and breath retentions, kumbhaka, mudras as well. A little bit of asana theory, which pertains a lot to history as well, but also yoga, postural yoga, asana through an Ayurvedic lens. The head and heart of yoga, Again, integrating back into prop usage as well. So we're coming at asana from quite a few different lenses, which I find extremely helpful for refining teaching. So you'll get quite a lot of video content of classes with me to practice. You will also receive some pre and postnatal yoga, and we'll break that down, because even though this is not a pre and postnatal specialist training, you are going to get people that show up to your classes that are pregnant or postnatal. Or that might happen to you yourself. And one astounding thing I find is that most women, when they're pregnant, get treated like this is prenatal yoga. And it's like, no, there's a real distinct shift between each of the trimesters. So giving you that knowledge. So if you have someone or a couple of women walk into your class, while you've got an entire group with you that are not pregnant, you can serve that one woman or those couple of women in a really confident way when you know what trimester they're in. And I find that this is enriching and helpful, particularly if you have not had children, you have not been pregnant yourself. This sort of insight is extremely helpful. But yes, you'll get lots of pranayama, you're going to get restorative, you're going to get lots of different practices from me, hatha practices, sangraha practices, etc. Guided shavasana, we'll be working through different pranadharana, meditation, guided meditation, structure of sadhana, shavasana scripts, japa practice. Okay, so that's a little bit of the overview of techniques, training, and practice. I'm sure there's things that I've missed there. Then we move into teaching methodology. So teaching methodology, in this, you'll see a little bit more of the business related side of things. So we'll do business planning, plans for growth, further studies and offerings to deepen your knowledge even further once the training is over, maybe mentoring or with another teacher or some kind of apprenticeship, or just depending on what works for you. We'll be looking at how you create your offerings, the pathway that you take your students, clients, and customers and your community through. We'll look at low, medium, and high cost offerings and the logic of that pathway, and creating free opt-ins and refining opt-ins, how people get into your email community, what I call my inner circle, where you can give those people a little bit more intimate insight and communication, and even, perks and bonuses and things like that, so you can really nurture your email community. So email communication and marketing, absolutely social media. We might do some Instagram refinement, or maybe even setting up for some of you, which I've found really powerful in working with other teachers that I've mentored, because we are in this reality of social media. So it is something that we need to embrace to some degree with balance. So website development of terms and conditions, disclaimers, privacy policies, and all those sort of more legal things, which can be very, very important when you have online offerings, or you start to offer things outside of the studio, such as hosting your own retreats and whatnot. Running retreats. So this is something I've had experience in. I've been running retreats now since 2013. So organization, facilitation, marketing, there is so much that goes on behind the scenes behind a successful retreat experience. Financial management, terms and conditions, how to manage complaints, pricing, what the inclusion should be, how to make sure that you earn for all your tremendous hours and hours and hours of behind the scenes work, as well as the delivery itself of the retreat. Every time I run a retreat, I'm reminded of how much work goes into it. So this is something that's very popular now. There's a lot of retreat saturation. And so also refining what makes your retreat unique, how to fill more spots on your retreats, etc., timelines, all that sort of stuff. So lots of generous information there. Launching, how to launch an offering, the stages, there's sort of a launch plan that I use. This relates more so to paying offerings, not free things that you're giving away. So there's a really constructive, simple sort of outline. So we'll delve into that. Then more about sort of the nuance of teaching methodology. We'll talk about qualities of a teacher, speaking on teaching yoga, adhikara, this essence of being readiness, this eligibility of teaching. We'll look into styles of modern postural yoga, including the variations, and the differences in language and sequencing, but also the historical thread that takes all these postural styles back in time, because a lot of people have no idea about that. So that's really important, I think, to have a sense of greater respect and integrity for how we got here into this sort of postural dominant world. Okay, styles in practice and experience of many different styles, and comparing them and talking about them and letting them each, just drawing upon all these different styles and letting them inform our practice. We'll be delving into speech, communication, our patterns, our language development, through recordings and reflections and feedback, looking at accessibility in our marketing and our language and our offerings as well. And this is something really crucial. We need to have excellent communication and articulation as yoga teachers. Okay, so that's much of teaching methodology and more. Philosophy, lifestyle, and ethics is another one of the categories with Yoga Alliance. So absolutely, we're going to spend a couple of hours delving into ethics. It's a big subject in itself, one that is growing, but we'll be delving into ethics of a yoga teacher, which is just so multifaceted. We'll be looking at the historical timeline of yoga and cultural context, history of India, which is really enriching. I was never into history in school, but I'm so hungry for history on yoga and India. It's fascinating. So we'll be looking at, what is yoga? It's a common question, but it's a loaded one. Understanding what it is to be Hindu. Is yoga religious? What is Sanatana Dharma? What are the foundations of being Hindu? This umbrella term that really was kind of placed upon the people of India many years ago. So really getting clear on that cultural history. You don't need to take on the culture as a yoga teacher or practitioner, but understanding it is respecting the cultural context and foundation, the socio-political climate that yoga evolved and developed within. The intersection of traditions, India's contributions to the world. This is powerful to acknowledge and so exciting to learn about. The history of Hatha Yoga, because most modern forms that we know today are founded on Hatha Yoga coming from sort of this confluence of asceticism and Tantra. Okay, so we'll be exploring and discussing guru, lineage, traditions, the 4 aims of life, the various paths of yoga, not styles of yoga, but paths of yoga, the purusharthas, the Ayurvedic stages of life. We'll be exploring the limbs of yoga beyond Patanjali's 8 limbs. What beyond? We're so fixated on this 8-limbed path, and yet many texts across many traditions, but a lot of Hatha texts as well, have differing limbs and a different number of limbs. So this is where we mature beyond the basics, right? Not to say, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is timeless, but it's nice to explore beyond that. There's a maturation, a seeking beyond that. The yama and niyama beyond the typical, beyond the well-known, beyond the 5 and 5. There's many more yama and niyama. And why? Why are they shown in some texts and not others? So this is a really enriching dialogue to be having and exploring and delving into different philosophical systems and darshanas, and how to weave yoga into daily life, mantras for different junctures of our day, prayers for food, for mealtime, for the sunrise, for the sunset, different moments of the day. So really bringing this yogic essence, a custom into our daily life, which is, I think, obviously if we're not raised with this cultural heritage, it's something we have to consciously engage in. Again, I touched on this before, but the language of yoga, Sanskrit, sounds, we'll be exploring certain texts. So we will do a bit of an overview again of Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutra, assuming you've done those on your 200-hour training. And quite often I find that many people come out of their 200-hour training anyway having this really kind of light, superficial understanding of these two texts, which were the first two texts to be translated from Sanskrit to English, which is one of the reasons why they're very well known. I'm going to share with you a few different versions of each text because it's really helpful to study these Shastra with multiple translations, to look at the differences in nuance and perspective and vision. I'm also going to share with you the translations that are recommended in my spiritual lineage. The Bhagavad Gita translation that I lean on now is so above and beyond any other version I've ever found. The secrets that are held in the Bhagavad Gita I've only really seen them unfold in this one particular translation. So I'll be sharing that with you, and we'll be delving into some of those threads, those songs, those lines, those beautiful teachings of the Gita, where there is so many layers of meaning, and each line is said to be a meditation of its own. In my spiritual lineage, it's believed that there are 12 layers of meaning to each. Bhagavad Gita is a profound text, so we will be revisiting those, and I say revisiting on the assumption that you have visited them before, particularly in a 200-hour training, to some degree. In addition to that, we will go deep into the Shiva Samhita, which I probably have. No, I don't have it next to me. Where is it gone? Anyway, the Shiva Samhita, the Yoga Yajnavalkya. These two texts we will take a deep dive into. I spoke about the Yoga Yajnavalkya on a podcast episode, not on my podcast, someone else who interviewed me. And it is considered a Hatha text, even though it's not necessarily obvious up front to be a Hatha text. But it is also a text that gives immense reverence to women. We see this real upliftment of women learning yoga, being yogis in this text, which is quite rare. It's a very accessible text as well to read and assimilate and understand, and very practical, very pertinent, and came before a lot of commonly known texts. It came before the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. It heavily informed the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is not actually a new text in itself. The Hatha Pradipika is a compilation of segments of other texts, which a lot of people don't realize. The Shiva Samhita is powerful and it is beautiful, and it teaches of the subtle body and the subtle realm in this poetic way. And it's a dialogue between Shiva and Parvati, which is so important because Shiva is the Lord of yoga. He is the first person to share the teachings of yoga to Parvati. And this book is that dialogue. It is that sharing before the world came to know yoga. So it is so important and so undervalued. So we'll be delving into the Shiva Samhita, Yoga Yajnavalkya, alongside reviewing Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutra, and just looking at those in a more subtle, mature way and revealing some secrets of those texts as well. So I very much look forward to those deep dives with you. Okay, moving on, we'll be exploring Dinacharya, Ritucharya, the Vedic days of the week. The Vedic days of the week, again, coming back to that sense of living, really living yoga. Maybe through the colors you're wearing, through the planets, the grahas that are related to that day, the deities, the gods. There are many aspects to each individual day that we can uncover. So we really feel a greater connection, a greater reverence to these teachings, the Vedic, the Indic tradition and worldview every single day. Sadhana and isolated practices aside. We'll be very lightly going into Jyotish, Vedic astrology, looking at individual chart, personal chart, current transit. We'll just do a very general overview of the houses, the nakshatras. The nakshatras are so important. And if you can learn anything from Vedic astrology, particularly as a yoga teacher and serving your community, and something that serves everybody equally, is not only knowing your nakshatra of your own, moon sign and rising sign, etc., but of the moment. There's a nakshatra, the moon constantly shifting between one nakshatra to another. And this is happening sort of every couple of days, roughly. And so knowing what nakshatra is influencing everybody's mind at one time can heavily inform our connection with other people, but how we teach and how we practice and how we experience life. So we're looking at that overview of Jyotisha. And yes, so there are texts. Anatomy and physiology. Okay, there is so much Western anatomy and physiology out there. If you crave that information, I can send you to the right place to just go deep dive into that. There's so much of it out there. Here, we give value, overdue value, to subtle yogic anatomy and physiology and Ayurvedic anatomy and physiology. We'll be delving into an understanding of the body, the 5 elements, much more than understanding the doshas, although we will do that as a bit of a recap. There's this really rich way of understanding the elements through the vision of the human body, of this microcosm, which I think is also a really helpful way to also look at sequencing yoga, postural yoga. We'll also look at the quite more literal Ayurvedic anatomy, the dhatus, the upadhatus, the shrutas, Agni. We'll do a nice deep dive into Agni, the malas, the waste products, the doshas, the 15 sub-doshas. So this will be really lovely. This will really draw upon my qualifications as an Ayurvedic practitioner. We'll do a little bit of Western stuff. We're just going to look at like the lungs, the nose, sort of some functional anatomy that relates to the breath and pranayama, so we can more effectively be pranayama practitioners and teachers and appreciate both mystically and scientifically the benefits of pranayama, and come to understand the current trends, the breathwork trends at the moment, why this is so popular, because people need it so badly. Okay, also a little bit of a dive into a very, very, very basic introduction of teachings from the Postural Restoration Institute on natural body asymmetry, and also unnatural things that have happened to us that create further asymmetry, and foot function. I think these things are overlooked and invaluable. They have served me profoundly, tremendously, especially if you have any mild injuries or your students do. We've already touched on this before, but Hasta Marma, Hasta Samudrika, Lakshana. So these more mystical aspects of the body through the yogic lens. And of course, the typical yogic subtle anatomy, the chakras, the nadis, bindu, granthis, vayu, kundalini, the traya sharira, prana, koshas, and also anatomy of the mind. Now, you might have heard of all these terms before, but we're going to explore them in a way that really helps you just get a solid understanding, a lot of clarity, and thereby the capacity to weave this understanding through your own physical practices. And if you teach, to present them through, like weave these concepts, not just verbally, and tell your students, are you working with this vayu today? And these are the poses you're doing. It's much more than that. So understanding this subtle yogic anatomy is where we become masterful at understanding right use of kumbhaka, breath retentions, woven into the practice, not just isolated separately while you're doing pranayama, right? Understanding where bandha is important, where mudra is integrated, not just hand mudras, but like whole body mudras. So safely and very confidently, like how do we bring this through into the practice? How do we serve our students in a way that we're serving the subtle body, subtle anatomy, prana, the mind, but in a way that's not off-putting or overly strange, but it's just bringing it into what you're already teaching. And then again, reiterating that we'll explore the anatomy of the mind, which is a huge subject in itself and a really important one, especially in today's world. But yes, we'll be delving into all the different layers of the mind. And when I say the koshas as well, we'll also look into the tantric layers of self, which are not the same as the pancha koshas, which are more a Vedantic approach to the layers of self. The tantric approach is definitely similar but distinctly different as well. And I think that that's important because tantra is heavily informed the yoga that we know and practice today. So that's a little bit of an overview. We might even do some thriksotropy, the working with the fascia in the body. This will just be a little bit of an overview. I think that it's helpful to understand tension and with respect to recovery and supporting an opening of the body through that knowledge of the fascia, but also thereby the nervous system and the breath and how this relates to everything else. So that's a very rich approach to anatomy and physiology. Finally, the last category is the practicum. So it'll be a mix of lead teaching, which, yes, lead teaching online, and not just necessarily teaching an hour asana class, but sitting and teaching mantra, sitting and teaching pranayama, sitting and teaching a short presentation on maybe Shastra, philosophy, mudra, for example. So we will be exploring that lead teaching. There'll also be a component where you need to observe. So observation through just pure participation, but also offer feedback, constructive feedback to fellow teachers that are immersed in the training. Offering feedback helps us to refine our own understanding and our own teaching. And yes, so we'll be doing some also workshopping how it's a similar approach to yoga therapy, working one-on-one. I'll give you my methodology for working one-on-one with private students, private clients, which for some of you will be sort of your main source of work. You might primarily work one-on-one with people. You might only work one-on-one with people like a couple of days a week, and that's all the teaching you do. Or you might just get the occasional one-on-one student. So how do you teach a one-on-one student? There are different methodologies, but you don't just want to go in and teach a class. You want to have a very structured approach. And so I will give you my approach. I'll also give you a little bit of an idea of some other approaches as well. So at least you have some real confidence in working one-on-one with students if anyone is to approach you, or maybe you continue to refine how you work with existing private clients and students. But yes, so in terms of your online live lead teaching, that'll be lead teaching online, meditation, pranayama, teaching mantra. It might just be presenting some teachings, some more philosophical, mystical teachings. It might be presenting something you've learned from our textual studies, etc. So that is more the practical, and then of course practicing underneath my guidance as well. Again, so just reiterating, there is a minimum number of non-contact and contact hours that are being met. There are a minimum number of live hours that must be met as well. We have these frameworks that are laid out by Yoga Australia, and then competencies with all these sort of areas that we'll be delving into. It's moving you to a destination where you feel competent and meeting those directives or directions from Yoga Australia, which I think is helpful because it gives us some clarity on the destination. And yet here I'm really creating this robust sort of pathway to get you there. So at the moment, there are partial scholarship places open and available. This gives you a discount of 1,400 Australian dollars. Please apply. If you are in any financial hardship, there is a description in the application as to sort of what we might look for or prioritize when accepting someone with a scholarship application, but it's not set in stone. Please don't feel shy or concerned about your reasoning for applying for a scholarship. We are all human, we all have challenges, and no one will be looked down upon. So if that is what you need to make this happen, please don't hesitate to submit that application. As it stands for our October 21st start this year in 2025, applications are going to close this month in August. We're closing the applications before eclipse season intentionally, but also to allow a window of preparation and registration and just some logistical things that do need to happen. So if you do have any questions, you're most welcome to reach out to me anytime. The deposit to enroll is 600 Australian dollars. The total course cost with no scholarship is 4,797 Australian dollars. So if you're tuning in and you don't live in Australia, please convert and double check your conversion, because I had a couple of people contact me converting to euro and they were getting the wrong conversion and it was significantly higher. So please double check that conversion. And then again, you take off the 600 Australian dollars. And if you are offered a partial scholarship, you would then take again off 1,400 Australian dollars. The payment plans are available, which are monthly installments, or you can also pay in full. That's up to you. Our program completes next year, October 21st, 2026 on Vijayadashami, which is just like absolutely sublime. Just the most divine timing, the dates of this course. I would love to say that I planned it out, but I truly didn't. And in some part, I think that makes it even better. And our mentorship completion will be 6 months later on the 21st of April, which is Hanuman Jayanti. It's beautiful. So it all worked out in just, as they say, cliche, but divine timing. So that is pretty much it. Enrollment does close on Sunday, the 24th of August. That is just around the corner. There are frequently asked questions on the website. So I'm going to quickly run through them because this is a longer video than intended. Will this certify me to teach yoga? Well, you can only do the course if you've got a 200-hour teacher training already, so you should already be certified to teach yoga. But yes, of course, on top of that, certainly. Now, is it registered with Yoga Alliance US or any other organization? The plan is for this to absolutely be approved and recognized by Yoga Australia. That is in process at the moment. What if you can't attend live sessions? So the live sessions at this point in time, they have not been set in terms of days and times. The reason for that is I'm waiting for everybody to enroll, the full cohort, to see what time zone everybody is on. And at this point in time, everybody's in Australia, so that works out easily. But I do want to consider everybody and look for the best timing possible if we do have others on different time zones. There is a certain percentage of the course that you must attend live. But what that means is you actually don't have to attend every single session live, although that would be the most beneficial. All the live sessions would be recorded and uploaded into our online course portal, which is sort of through the back end of my website. So you will get all those recordings, and the recordings will remain in the course portal to the very end of the course completion. So you'll have those to continue to refer back to over the months. Will you receive further support? Yes, you will. Again, 6 months of mentoring after the course completion. Payment plan is one payment per month over 11 months after your deposit. And if you, for any reason, do need to defer, deferrals can be used toward the next intake. However, scholarship places cannot be deferred. And how many hours per week? Well, you know what? It's hard to say because everybody learns at a different rate. I would say 4 to 5 hours a week, which for some of you might seem like a lot. I will be cheeky and start by saying that there's probably time that you could not be watching Netflix, TV, scrolling YouTube or social media and devote to your studies. Many of us are guilty of that at different times. So there's probably some time that can be found there. But also, that 4 to 5 hours a week includes not a whole bunch of intellectual information going in, but that could include an hour of sadhana, just one in a whole week. You might have a yoga practice every single day, right? So it might be 3 hours of personal practice that week. It might be 3 hours of just doing pre-recorded classes with me online, meaning you can do them whenever you want, 5 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night, lunchtime, weekends, etc. Then attending live class and then doing some of the online material self-paced at your own time. So it's very flexible. It's very manageable. And I say that as a mother of 2 young children with absolutely zero family support here in this area. No babysitter, no nanny, no nothing. And our youngest is home with me almost every single day, all day. So I wholeheartedly mean that, from, that I've absolutely given it so much thought to make sure that this is as accessible as possible. Thank you so much again for your time. If you have any further questions from this video, please absolutely don't hesitate to reach out. It would be the most delight to be in dialogue with you. And again, you're most welcome to place your deposit and then send me an email, reach out and connect with me and send me your 200-hour teacher training. If you'd like to get on a phone call, I'm most happy to discuss and chat with you on the phone. or on WhatsApp, or throw me a voice note on Instagram or an email. I'm very approachable and accessible, however suits you. I absolutely hope that you'll be with us for this inaugural round of Shruti School of Yoga 300-hour teacher training. This is being offered at a founding inaugural price, never ever to be offered at this rate again. And to be wholeheartedly honest with you, if you compare this to other 300-hour trainings out there of equal quality, caliber, you're not going to find it at this rate. Most trainings are anywhere up to $6,000, some of them $6,000 for a 300-hour advanced training. So I do hope that you will be with us. It would be the greatest honor to serve you. Ram Ram.